passive income. Passive income is the income you generate without trading your time for money, right? So your passive income needs to be at least 50% of your active income, right? But even for that, the passive income to be generated, you need to have some active income, right? So you need to have a stable job, you need to work at it for a certain period of time.
The journey of financial independence requires a level of dedication and discipline and self determination. That's particularly true when you are someone trying to reach independence in your early age of 30s and 40s. Hello and welcome to the Honest Talk by Freak Folks. I'm Harsh Pandey. For this particular session, our guest will be Ms. Smita Das Jain, ma'am, who is here with us. She is an experienced corporate professional with a varied passion palette, an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Indore, with an executive degree from the Columbia Business School. She has 14 years of experience working with the Fortune 500 like KPMG and JLL. She has advised Indian and global clients on their business strategies and created new service lines from scratch and mentor team in her fortune. After achieving financial independence, she decided to transform her passion into pursuits. She is certified creative writer and digital content writer with published stories in StoryMirror and Penmancy. So first of all, ma'am, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's our pleasure too. So moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is My Money, My Voice, the power of financial independence. My very first question to you is, or rather it's a kind of request to you, ma'am, kindly explain our viewers the meaning of financial independent. What does it mean financially independent and how do you define it?
Okay, so to me personally, I would say financial independence will mean different things at different points of your life, right? When you are a child, when you are a teenager, financial independence will simply mean that you have enough pocket money to buy the things that you want to without asking your parents, right? When you start with your career, like for me, financial independence meant that I should be able to buy whatever I want without, relying on my better half. For me, that was financial independence. That, if I need to buy something, I don't need on anyone outside, be it, my closest family members. Now, at this stage, okay, I'm in my mid 30s now. At this stage, basically, when I say I'm financially independent, it is the freedom to do what I choose. I don't need to trade my time for money, which means, okay, if I work because I love to work, not because I have to. So the freedom not to trade your time for money, okay, that is what financial independence means. You should have enough cushion so that, either you love what you do or you are free enough, to leave your job and pursue your passions that I'm doing. So that is what is financial independence for me.
All right, ma'am. One question which also comes here is that, and which is very, very obvious, is that do one need to earn a huge money to reach financial independence? How actually it start? Where do one can start this?
So actually, I don't know, Harsh, what do you mean by huge money? Because a person who is having, like to me, I might be having huge money, but if I compare myself with a Mukesh Ambani, obviously I won't have enough money, right? So it's basically, the definition of huge. I would not say huge. You should have enough money. That's what I would say. And the definition of enough depends on your needs. Okay. To me, I would say I have enough for my need and I don't have much greed. Okay, so you should know what is it that you want. The basic things are a given, right? Food, shelter, clothing, and all. I mean, that is something that everybody needs to have. You need to have something more than that, right? So that you don't compromise with your choices in life.
Correct.
You have enough to enjoy a life, right? uh, After, once you decide that, what are those your needs and your wants, and you need to curb your desires. After that, basically it takes some, discipline. I can give my own personal experience, like, right, 14 years back when I started working. So right at that point, I had a target in mind that, I want to own my own house. Okay. And secondly, I need some XXX amount of money in my bank account. That is the target I had set in mind. And to me, that was okay. When I have those things, that is when, my need to work will stop, and it will be my interest whether I want to work or not. So right from the outset, keeping that financial target in mind, all my decisions were, geared towards that. It's a myth that, like, you have to invest a lot to achieve financial independence. I would not say so. The basic of any personal plan is savings, right? So there's a different mindset, mind shift that I applied. Like, conventionally people, think that savings is basically income minus expenditure. So basically, you earn something and then you have your expenses. And if at all you have something at the end, you save. Okay. Now, for me, I practically turned the formula to its head right from the outset. I kept a savings target rather than an expenditure target. So, of course, my income was something that depended on my professional capability. But right from the outset, I had a savings target. Okay. So, for example, 50% or 60% of my income every month, I had to save. So that basically limited my expenditure, because instead of having limited savings, I had, okay, this target that I had to save that much. So my expenditure obviously was whatever I kept in the bucket after saving. So that really helped to control the expenditure. Now for savings, basically, if you have, the vision to basically allocate whatever you want and you need into short term, long term, and medium term, and invest those savings appropriately in that investments, and you stay put on the investment, it will obviously give you returns. I'll tell you, it's again a myth when people say that, oh, I can't grow my money because I am not savvy at investment. I don't know how to make an investment. Again, that's another myth. If you look at markets, you study the markets, one would realize that the key to any successful investment is not to make a good investment decision, but to stay with that investment decision. So obviously, if you look at anything in the short term, everything is volatile, right? You will not get any returns. But if you have the patience enough, to and disciplined enough to keep your savings in certain instruments, which is allocated as per your plans, and you have that willpower, okay, come what may, I will not touch that kitty till 10 years, then obviously you will get a higher return, because 10-year you have basically, you are not susceptible to the market volatility, right? So obviously, if you stay investment for that long, you will get the returns. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are in stock markets, but maybe this example will resonate. Apple took, 30 plus years to reach a market cap of $1 trillion. It took another 2 years to reach market cap of 2 trillion, right? 30 years versus 2 years. So that is because, the base, obviously, for 30 years, it had that base. And now when you have 1 trillion, that's a substantial base. So obviously the doubling takes, less than 1/3 the time. So, I mean, and that basically is what, growing your wealth is all about. I don't know whether that made sense or not. I think I
Yes,
spoke
ma'am,
a
it
lot.
made. Absolutely, it made. I think you have very beautifully explained, and I'm sure the viewers who are watching this session, they are surely going to find us insightful. Not only I think, but I do strongly believe this. Ma'am, my
Uh,
next question to you is actually I'm thinking to ask some tips from you, but I will ask this later. Okay. Many people believes that there are certain type of stages which you have to qualify to achieve the financial independence. Do you believe such things? If you believe, then what are the different stages of financial independence, and how do I know if I have reached financial independence?
There are stages, like, when I started my career 14 years back, and I would have targeted that I would be financially independent right from day one. I mean, that would have been a very, very unrealistic target. Okay. So obviously, depending on your life, on your age, what part of life stage you are, the financial independence will also differ, right? Firstly, of course, you need to have a certain base. Like, if you don't have any income, you will not have savings. At least, obviously the principle of financial independence is that your passive income is the income you generate without trading your time for money, right? So your passive income needs to be at least 50% of your active income, right? But even for that, the passive income to be generated, you need to have some active income, right? So you need to have a stable job, you need to work at it for a certain period of time, you know even, like, and there are people, and I can completely identify that they absolutely hate their jobs. They're just doing it for the purpose of earning money. I would say at the start of your career, you will have to do that unless you have an inheritance or a gift or something, right? But that is the thing. If one keeps the goals in mind, and stick through their work and are true to their work and grow, then obviously you have your income. So you grow your income, because let's say you're working somewhere for even 5-6 years, and then you don't spend, you have a savings target rather than an expenditure target, as I explained. Then you will automatically have a base, right? Now with that base, basically, okay, when you have funds which is meeting 6 months of your monthly expenses, then okay, you are short term. In the short term, you are financially independent, because you have a nest egg which can meet your expenses for 6 months. Then basically you look at your medium and long term goals, and then you see, okay, you invested in certain investment, in certain instruments which is aligned to your goals and your risk profile. Like, no point in investing in equity if you are not, if you don't understand it, or if you have a very, very low risk appetite. There are enough options. But then, again, it does not mean that you keep all your savings in your savings account, because that is not going to generate much returns, right? So you have, first stage is basically you have enough savings to meet 6 months of your expenses. That means, okay, for any emergency you are covered. The next stage is basically you write down you plan out your time horizon and whatever goals you have for the medium and long term. Invest in it, like, for medium term, something like an ELSS or a ULIP, that is good enough. For long term, obviously, the full-fledged stock market and all, the stocks or even long term bonds, they are good enough. Now basically, the moment you have that, you are invest, and you stay invested. uh the moment, as I said, passive income is interest, okay, interest on interest. That's the power of compounding. The moment you are at a stage when your passive income, is approaching 35 to 40% of your active income, whatever that is, that means you are well on your path to financial independence. And then, like, for me, okay, I realized 6-7 months back that, okay, I had a target in mind, which is to own a house and to have, excess money in my bank account. By bank account, I mean obviously invested, not necessarily in savings bank account, but basically, invested in certain instruments and all. So I have achieved that. And for me, basically, whatever is my financial needs, I have my investments in, I have, put my money to work in such a way that my passive income is now more than 50% of my active income. So basically, if I don't do anything, but I mean, I will earn interest enough to, cover my expenses and more than my expenses. So that basically means, okay, I am now free to do what I love. I don't necessarily need to work if I am not happy with my work. So the moment, that you don't need to work, you have a choice whether to work or not. That, I would say, is financial independence.
Indeed, ma'am. I think you have very beautifully explained again, and you have stressed on the part of passive income. This is something which I also wanted to ask you. Let's be more specific, ma'am. My question to you is: how do you define passive income, and what are the some best ways to make it? You have taken the example of stock market. Apart from this, what are the some cool ways?
Hmm. So, say passive income is any earning that you generate without having to trade your time for it. For example, in work, I go to office, I'm giving my time and I get a salary. So that's active income because I'm working to get that money. If I don't go to work, I won't get that money. Passive income is something that you generate without having to work for it. For example, interest income, right? Let's say your 1 lakh salary, out of that 1 lakh 50,000 you are putting in your savings account every month, you are getting an interest on it, even if it's a nominal rate, right? But like in 50,000, let's say you get an interest of even say 1,000 rupees the first month. Now the second month you have 51,000, right? So that 1,000 rupees, which you didn't have to work for that 1,000 rupees, that money was in your banks. Because it was in your bank, you got that interest, right? And then because of a cumulative, you will generate interest on that interest. Like after 50 years, that 1,000 will be, maybe it will be 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs, depending on the interest rate and the inflation that we are having that period of time. So that is basically passive income. Another example could be, let's say you've got a house, you have put it on rent, right? So again, that's a passive income. Once you have put it on rent, till the time it is on rent, you don't have to do anything, okay? Except perhaps chasing your tenants to give you rent on time. That's a different story. But you don't have to trade your time for money. So again, that's a passive income. So that's when I say, when you have enough sources of passive income, that basically the concept of passive income is putting your money to work, make your money grow and generate more money for you. So that is what passive income is.
Indeed, ma'am. I think you have again explained it very clearly, and you made it clear what actually passive income is all about. And my next question to you is just about everybody wants to become financially independent. So why do so people get there? One of the secret to attaining financial independence is that it doesn't usually just happen as you have told. It starts with a detailed plan and a willingness to commit to that plan. May I request you to please share some tips with our viewers which you have used, or perhaps what can be the best tips to achieve this financial stability?
One, of course, if you're at the beginning of your career, to be patient and to have a savings target every month. As I explained, it has worked for me. I had a savings target rather than expenditure target. For me, expenditure was the delta after whatever I saved, rather than vice versa. So obviously, when you have that one, obviously every month by default your savings are growing because you have a savings target. Secondly, by default you are controlling your expenditure. When I know, okay, out of 1 lakh I only have to spend 40,000 per month because 60,000 is my saving target, I'll be very disciplined. I will not go for that much impulse buys and everything, right? Because I know I have to limit my expenditure to that. So I'm not talking about a miserly mindset. It's not that. It's having that disciplined mindset that okay, that this is what it is, and you have to spend within that. And of course, as your income grows, your expenditure will automatically grow, even if you keep your, even if you increase your saving percentage. So that is one. Secondly, I would say, something that has worked for me is combing my expenditure statements. Like every 3 to 6 months, I used to, in fact, I still do. I go through my credit card statements and my bank statements to identify what are my, expenditure items. I classify, some expenditure are a given. Like if you're staying on rent, you have to pay rent, right? And obviously. So it is something, which is non-discretionary. But then, going to movies, not in the current situation of COVID, but generally, okay, you go out, you go to movies, you travel and all. So I used to comb my expense statements, and then out of that, whatever was non-discretionary, I used to park because that is something I had no choice. I really had to incur it. But whatever was discretionary, I really, used to look. And then I used to, just analyze what portion of my expenses, was non-discretionary versus discretionary. And then for the discretionary part, I gave myself a challenge. Okay, every month, I have to reduce my discretionary expenses by 5% as compared to last. So that is a challenge I really used to give myself, which helped me again, first to discipline my expenditure, second to even reduce my expenditure, because, and it was a challenge to me. Nobody, told me that. So that really worked because it all helped in growing my savings. Third, because of these discipline habits, 5 years after I started working, I had a sizable, good enough bank balance and all. That helped me to take out certain risks. Okay, I went out and invested in real estate. uh, that time, the scheme that I took, it was basically, you have to pay something initially, put something upfront, and then, what I did that, and even though I took a loan, I was able to prepay it well within time. And because, of that decision that I made, fortunately for me, I was able to, sell. That house was not complete, but the under construction property I was able to sell, and that too at a gain, right? So because of my financial position, I was able to take a slight risk, and that risk paid off, which helped me to grow my money even more, because, that investment, the gain in, the capital gain was again a passive income. It wasn't an active income, right? I invested in property, the value went off, I sold that off, and there is a gain that I made. So I again invested that income instead of, spending it. And that is how it helped me basically. When I remember, when I think maybe I was in standard 7th or 8th, I picked up a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I don't know, many people might have heard about this book. I'm sure you would have heard by the, I can see the way that you're nodding your head. So that principles have governed my life throughout. One was like, you pay your creditors the last, not the first. Because if you keep your money in savings, you will find a way to pay off your creditors. Okay. Secondly, house is not an asset, it's a liability. That was the second principle, and I realized it is, because, and that is why I was very this thing, like at the start of my career, I don't want to buy a house unless I have enough funds, because I don't want, I didn't want myself to be, negative in debt and all. And third, basically, make your money work for you. So that is something, everything with regards to my personal finance was governed by that mindset. Okay, I'm earning. Okay, I was trading my time for money. Now, okay, at the end of every month, I had a certain amount, credited to my bank. Now, how could I make sure that I put that money to work, so that at a certain point in future, I had the choice not to trade my time for money. So that governed my every decision. And if you are conscious, actually, nothing can, if you're conscious and you're disciplined enough, then those habits will grow automatically. So basically, having a savings oriented mindset, combing through your expenditure, and having a clear time horizon of your financial goals with appropriate investment, that did the trick for me.
Indeed, ma'am, you have told so many important things, and I'm sure the viewers, those who are watching this session, they are surely going to find this meaningful on many levels. I don't want to take too much of your time. So moving to my last question of this session, and I'm sure there's a lot to learn from you. But today I don't want to take too much of your time. So moving to my last question. Actually, this is very sensitive topic, and which this is something which I also wanted to cover previously also, but I never got a chance. So today I'm doing this. As people want to become more aware of the far-reaching consequences of financial illiteracy, one question becomes very obvious: why isn't personal finance taught in school? This is a fair question, as one considers the repercussion of financial ignorance and advantages of knowing about personal finance. This question becomes increasingly important. The answer is a general failure of the education system to identify the most relevant skills students should possess. While some point to underfunding as a response to the question of why personal finance isn't taught in the school, to education managed to fund STEM programs with extensive computer and lab equipment but cannot find a room in the budget for teaching personal finance. Ma'am, it's a kind of request to you. Please share some of your tips to the age group of 15 to 30, because these are the most vulnerable group and they don't have that much knowledge about financial management.
So before I share the tips, let me take your this thing why personal finance isn't taught at schools. Well, a lot of things need to change in the education system. Personal finance might be one of them, but having said that, okay, I would not say that the concept wasn't introduced. I remember as a child when I used to study mathematics, there was this entire modules on saving and simple interest and compound interest. So it was not that the concept wasn't introduced, it was introduced. And like everybody, okay, I mean, you know, you can have the same page, or two people can see the same movie. Or maybe I would take a quote of Oscar Wilde here. Two people look out from the same bars, one saw the gutter, the other saw the stars, right? So basically the concept, my point is that people are introduced to the concept of savings, interest rates and everything in mathematics in school itself. Of course it isn't packaged as personal finance, but the concept is there. Now it depends on how one takes it, right? So, and I would say apart from educators, it's the responsibility of parents also. Like all of us give pocket money to our kids. If while giving that right at the young age, we introduce the concept of, okay, this is savings, this is what you do to get it, this is how you spend it, the genesis is there right at the young age, and that can go a long way. Now with regards to the 15 to 30-year-old, I said one very important thing, and I might be repeating myself, but it becomes very, very important if you want to, increase your wealth and be financially independent, in your middle ages rather than the late ages. So you need to have a savings mindset. Even if it is, that percentage of income that you need to save, the target might vary, but you need to absolutely have a savings target. You need to keep it in your mind that income minus savings is expenditure rather than the other way around. So at the age of 15, for example, I know there is no active income, but if your parents are giving you pocket money, right, instead of treating the entire thing as something you need to spend, you can have a savings mindset. Okay, if I get 1,000 rupees pocket money for month, let me save 700 and spend only 300. So by the time you're in 20, that 700 rupees per month into, 12 months, into 5 years, it grows to, substantial base. So, that can be a foundation. And comb your expenditure. Very important to understand, how much is your non-discretionary expenditure and what can you do, to curb it, basically. And another thing that has worked for me is, at home, is this rule of money-free weekend, which I keep for myself, which basically means, okay, one weekend every month. It can be any weekend of my choice, from a Friday evening to Monday morning. I decide that I am not going to spend on anything.
That's interesting.
So, okay. So if that is something, so if that weekend something, arises, assuming it's not an emergency and all, of course, but for discretionary spend or going out or even buying some essentials, I earmark it on my calendar that, okay, this weekend is money free weekend. I'm not going to spend anything, come what may. I will spend after Monday, but not during this weekend. So even if you have, so 1 month, 1 weekend every month is money free. So that is something, again, those small habits of building financial discipline that works. So that is something that, especially, the generation which is 15 to 30-year-old, not very difficult to follow, right? I mean, simple steps, but they can go a long way in making your money grow.
Indeed, ma'am, you have shared a lot of things about yours, and I'm sure the viewers, those who are watching this session, it was a kind of learning for them as well. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. We look forward to conduct more such sessions with you in future. Thank you for joining again. Thank you, ma'am, for your time.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for calling me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
On the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside.